Well, hello and welcome to Arthur's Engage review. This is number 2. In number 1, if you've seen it, I reviewed a Graham Farish locomotive and promised you that review number 2 would be something different. You're probably thinking, well, here comes the poll. Well, no, you'd be wrong, because what we're now going to review for you is Union Mills class 460 Prince of Wales class, and I have 2 for you here. Here we have on shed number 58001, named Lusitania in British Railways livery, and in the box here we have number 86 Mark Twain, which is in the LNWR, London North Western Railways livery. So let's have a look at the box. If you've not heard of Union Mills before in Engage, then you have a treat in store. If you have, well, I'll probably be preaching to the converted here. Anyway, here's the box, and the first thing you notice is it's made of cardboard. These are short run locomotives and therefore don't have the plastic boxes, and I rather think that cardboard is going to last a long while. You have the description of the locomotive, a picture of the locomotive, and the Union Mills sticker. It also comes with that technical innovation, the elastic band. So inside, what we've got is the locomotive itself, wrapped in bubble wrap, the piece of cloth to stop any oil getting into the bubble wrap, and there she is. Also in the box, a bit of packing and the paperwork. The paperwork in this instance is a single sheet of paper. It consists of a very concise history of the locomotive, and then Union Mills have put the do's and the don'ts in the bottom of the page. I should say, not a history of the locomotive, a history of the class of the locomotive. And now the do's and don'ts are quite interesting, because there is an idea in some areas that Union Mills locomotives are only DC, that they're not that they can't be converted to DCC. Well, they can. It's not easy, but I believe they can be done, and there's at least one company in the UK that's actually doing that. Anyway, let's put this one on the track and see what we can see. Oh, one other point. The first thing that you notice is how heavy this locomotive is. That's because it's made of metal. How heavy is it? Oh, it's 164 grams that locomotive weighs, and to put that into context, the Ginty that I reviewed in number 1 weighed 40 grams. So this model weighs 4 times as much as the last locomotive. Okay, it's bigger, but the weight is significant. Okay, so here we have both locomotives on track. The first thing you notice about them is that being made of metal, everything is moulded, including the handrails are not separate. And this is a typical Union Mills product, with the motor in the tender, and he only does models without valve gear. You also notice that there's a rather conspicuous wire between locomotive and tender, and more advanced modelers might want to do something about that. Let's have a look at the LNWR version. This is a stunning model. The smoke box in matte black and the locomotive body in gloss black with a very fine representation of London North Western Railway lining. Really good. Anyway, without any more from me, let's get them running. And I put a controller here this time so you can see what's going on. And off she goes. It's not quite straight out of the box, this one. It has had a little bit of running. But again, we're on this toy track. As you can see, it being a heavy locomotive, it really does stick to the track. And the other thing, of course, it's got that big bogie on the front, which is not sprung in any way, and therefore guides it over uneven surfaces with some alacrity. You'll notice, of course, the standard coupler on the back and a hook-like coupler on the front. If you look at, you can see it there. Okay, Union Mills models are renowned for their haulage power, and I hope to demonstrate that very shortly. Okay. Well, controller's just over about 22 now, goes up to 100 on graduation, and I'm going to take it right down to let's have a look at some slow running here. Controller's just below 20 and she's running beautifully. One other thing that has to be said about Union Mill models, they are rather sort of the start. If you're the person who likes to super detail, then these are ideal models for you, because there's so much that can be added in the way of a crew, vacuum pipes, little bits of detailing, maybe a little bit of real coal in there. You can really make this locomotive your own. And I do believe that these are collector's items of the future, particularly 58001 Lusitania, because of course knowledgeable people will know that that's a combination that never existed. That number was allocated to the locomotive by British Railways, but the locomotive and none of this class actually ever went into service with their British Railways numbers, although I believe 4 were allocated numbers, Lusitania being one of them, but they were all scrapped before they could carry those numbers. So if you want to run that particular locomotive on your railway, then Rule 1 is very much to the fore with that one. I think the number actually sits extremely well on that model, and she does look the part. But of course that's my highly biased opinion. Anyway, on the next thing, let's get round to more performance, shall we? So we'll bring this one round. Now, with my last review, I started off with a 1-coach Lima load, went up to 2 and 3, and then eventually ended up with the 7 coaches that you see in the siding there. They're all old Lima, so there's a fair amount of drag on them. We're not going to bother with the 1s and the 2s, the Union Mills. What we're going to do is we're going to put 7 coaches on the track and go immediately from there. So bear with us while we just set the job up. Okay, here we have the renowned 7 Limas, and in the distance there is our locomotive ready to go. So with the flick of the controller, and we're off. The controller is just over 20, which was the same setting as we had when she was on as a light engine, and as you can see she's just whistling away with it. Very nice scale speed. And I would say that that locomotive, or that model, is totally in command of what she's had. If we want to up the speed, train set speed, we can do that. She's just on 30 now. This is a third of the controller in use, so as you see there is plenty of power and control in hand, and we'll nicely bring her into the station. And now we're going to swap locomotives. We're going to run her backwards through the points just to prove just what Union Mills models are capable of. So bear with me. So we've given Mark Twain, the LNWR variety, a rest, and now here is Lusitania hauling 7 Liverpool bogies, tender first. So away we go. And I mentioned that hook coupling on the front of the locomotive. Well, you can see it in action there, and no problem holding the standard coupling. And there she goes, tender first through some small radius points. And I think that demonstrates the capability of Union Mills locomotives. And just going to keep going at that. The controller again is set just on 20, so she's one thing I forgot to mention in the paperwork from Union Mills is that when you there is no website, of course. Colin Hurd, the proprietor, does have an email address, but the easiest way of getting hold of one of these models is to ring up and have a conversation with the man. And when it's delivered, it usually comes with a very personalised letter saying thank you, and within the letter, of course, there is the latest list of what is available, tempting you, of course, to buy another one. But it's a very nice personalised way of doing business. Anyway, enough from me. Let's think of some numbers. Go straight into the scores here, I think. So appearance. Well, of course, these models are not up to the Chinese standards of 2014. They're not super detailed. They don't come with the extra little pack. What you see is what you get. So 80 out of 100 for appearance. What could be improved? I think that wire coming from the tender, and of course the tender itself, although it's the powerhouse model, does have solid wheels, which to some is an annoyance, certainly not to me. I can't see that close when I'm running. Performance, well, performance 95 out of 100, it's going to be top marks. These are super models. Cost, well, again, 9 out of 10. These are very good value. Compared with how prices are going, these two locomotives here cost about the same as a Farish Coronation is going to cost you in shops when it finally arrives from China. So that gives you some idea of the value for money that I think these are, particularly as when it comes to longevity and spares. I think these locomotives are going to be with us for a long time. Colin Hurd, the proprietor of Union Mills, is exceptionally good on spares, and when we get to reviewing things like Jubilees and WAC 5s and 8Fs and things, you'll find that the availability of a tender with a drive on its own puts Union Mills way ahead of the game, particularly anybody who likes to dabble. Bonus marks, yes, I'm going to give 5 here. 5 for being brave enough to do a British Railways locomotive that never existed, and 5 for doing London and North Western Railway locomotive. No other engaged manufacturer is going to touch the LNWR with a barge pole, because they probably wouldn't get the sales, but Union Mills do. So there's your bonus marks. That gives I believe a total of 90 out of 100, and I think that's very fair assessment of this locomotive. I'll finish off with a few stills of these two taken at various places on this little railway, just to give you some idea of what they would look like on your railway. Let's slow the job down. And so to conclude, these I think are two models that have definitely got the wow factor. Well, they have with me anyway. Next review, yes, okay, it's going to be DePaul time, folks. What are we going to do? Well, we started off small with the Farish. We've now gone to medium-sized locos with the Prince of Wales. So let's go the whole hog and do the 9Fs, which will be the next one, review from DePaul. So number 3 will be a DePaul review with a little help from Hornby Mini Tricks. So see you then, and I hope you found this useful.